What's up, bookworms? Welcome to episode 100 of the Cantina Book Club podcast, where readers can find interviews with authors of all genres. I am Megan, self proclaimed content queen, here to bring you insights from the authors themselves. Each week features a Cantina conversation with an author. This instance for episode 100, 100 episodes for clips. Some of them are really short, maybe like less than 40 seconds, but some of them are a few minutes long. But either way, this is designed to let you to clue you guys in as to some of my most fun and enjoyable moments just from interviewing these amazing, talented people, talking about their work, having the opportunity to read the work somebody else does. You've heard it before, and you can pick that up and get into. A lot of these clips are going to include some adult language and adult themes, adult topics. Sometimes I give the authors crap for making me feel certain things, or I just want to shake up the characters and tell them to get their shit together. But just be mindful around listening ears. So this week, we've got The Cruel Dawn by Rachel Housel Hall. That is the sequel to the last one, the fantasy duology that she released this past year. I'm really excited about this, and she's going to also be a future guest on the podcast soon. So keep an eye out. And I recommend that for fantasy lovers to check that out as well. Podcasts to listen to, whether it's author interviews or they're breaking down certain books. Maybe it's a movie adaptation of a book. Check out Book Podcast Connection on Instagram, and it's a collection of over 100 bookish podcasts for anybody who's looking to get a little bit extra out of their reading list. I definitely recommend that you guys check out and just support them and see. Maybe are a little bit harder to find. As but you of these random clips, I you might not always know who you're speaking with, or two, you might. I promise you that the conversations are still worthwhile. And if you guys have any questions about this episode or anything else that I've encountered through the first 100 episodes, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to share my thoughts and experiences with you. And of course, I'm going to continue doing this. And so I'd love if you guys stick around. Without further ado, enjoy 100 Cantina conversations and counting.
I wanted to explore that a little bit of how maybe your personal professional experiences helped either if they prepared you for this project, if they inspired you for this project, biggest lessons learned, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So there is nothing professional about me. I still have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And yes, I've definitely learned a lot, but it's all been at like breakneck. It's like I don't really know what's happening to me still. I can't believe that I have a book. Yeah, a few years ago, I was going through a crappy time, like super crappy time. And I think it's very easy during those periods in our life to fall into unhealthy habits and hobbies. And so I was just like, I got to do something. I got to do something healthy for myself. And so I just started writing, and this is what came out of that. I opened an Instagram account because my goal was I get a thought or a feeling that I'm having and get out of me so that it as just a therapeutic thing. I think that many people do journaling and that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to do it one time a day, and I was just like, to keep myself honest, I think I need to be posting it somewhere so that not just in a diary, because I can cheat in a diary. If it's say I write whatever, open the Instagram account, and I was writing some brutal, horrible bits about the very icky, yucky feelings and stuff like that. And people found it somehow and enjoyed it and related to it and shared it and liked it and followed along. And then about a year, maybe a little more than a year after I started the account, my publisher found the account and they were like, "Do you want to write a book?" And I thought it was a scam because there's so many scams on Instagram. So I was like, how many? Yeah, I wrote something like super snarky back to the email. And they were like, yeah, no, that's not really how traditional publishing works or whatever. Anyway, it was because I couldn't fathom that. I was like, wait, what? You want to do what? So yeah. So then about 9 months after that, the book was released last October 1st. And yeah, it's been a whirlwind because I still don't know anything. I'm still so confused. I don't know if the book is doing well by anybody's standard. I don't know. I know nothing. So I'm just along for the ride. And I just think it's like really kick ass that I have a book and like my mom's super happy and my
Oh, yeah.
so it's like,
And your
yeah.
brother's got the
And my brother
bathroom
has it on the
read
back of the
now.
toilet. And so I really made it. But that's how that goes, right?
And now I get my 7-year-old to do it with me. It's really like I do. We've signed it like through his school. They've done a couple 5Ks, and so I'm like,
Yeah.
"Do you want to do it?" And I think he hears them hyping it up at school. So he's, "Yeah, are you sure?" It's 3
awesome.
miles, honey. It's 3 miles. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, do you-
Exactly. And especially it depends on the weather because I don't even know. Even in May, you never know what weather you're gonna get. So it's
Are you in
I
Chicago?
yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
suburb of
No, no,
Chicago, so
yeah.
yeah, but it's just that same unpredictable weather. 8 months out of the year, you don't really it could go either way. But yeah, it's fun now where I'm like, it's really funny, like the couple 5Ks I've done with him, we didn't really train much, but he had the energy and stuff. And I remember towards like the last half mile, I'm like, he's like in front of me.
Like
He's a couple
running
blocks in
backward.
front of me. Yeah. Yeah. I know, like I could see him weaving in and out of other groups of runners. I'm like, I could still see him. And there'll be like volunteers on the
Uh-huh.
side. They know I'm like, oh, it's okay. I saw Logan. I waved at him. He's
Yeah.
okay. I'm like trailing up behind him. And I'm like, man, if I start walking, I'm gonna lose my kid. Like he
Right.
helped me like not walk. He helped me keep
Yeah.
going.
You
So
were like, I
it's
cannot walk.
I
Walking down
know. Yeah.
neglect.
Yeah, right. Just like it was like, oh wait, we didn't have a finish line plan.
Right.
My husband's there, but I don't even know like where he is. And so now he knows like he could do it. I think we did a Halloween themed 1 mile, like he did a youth run. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
he's easy.
No
I
problem.
got it. Easy.
There were a lot of things, a lot of technical things about organizing the book and then focusing on what it should be about and how to make the pitch to the publisher that would be a saleable angle on the book. Because initially I was just writing a book about recovery and families, about my relationship with my mother, my ex-wife, and the soon-to-be ex-wife, and my kids turning into teenagers, and how I used to deal with all their stuff by going off and getting high, and what it's like not being able to do that anymore. But then the elephant in the room was really the Leonard story. That was a big part of that. That was the key relationship in my life, the most troublesome relationship in my life. And then Brenda felt that was just going to be the angle to help me sell the story, that people would be interested. And it would be a more eye-opening if the book revolved initially around that. And then as I delve off into my relationship with my Jewish mother, very challenging, and my ex-wife and my daughter, the women in my life who were also knew how to press my buttons, let's just say.
I tell people it's like it's coming from a former teenage girl. It's almost like a rite of passage because I didn't get along with my dad from like age 12 to 22. I don't like, or we fought a lot more. We just like, I don't know if it's just because of that daughter father relationship or it's because we're a lot alike where we get stubborn and we're like, fuck you. And then when I got older, I was like, sometimes when it comes to your parents, you just have to eat shit. And this is now I have 2 little boys now. So I'm like just preparing for that. They're like 3 and 7. And so I got a long way to go. And so I'm just like, my older one, he's already using my own terms against me. If we're in an argument and it's getting maybe a little heated, he's mommy, I'm trying to talk to you, but you keep interrupting me. I'm like, at the same time, like I was like, I'm trying not to laugh, like I'm in shock. So I definitely, I know that stuff will definitely resonate.
And that same thing goes with parents too. Like they are also their own people. And I'm really, especially with my dad, he's got a lot of stories I'm sure that haven't been told, but my mom especially is the kind of person who she won't bring up like her own like stories or her own wild family past unless you ask about it, or it might just come out like an offhand comment. Like relatively recently, she just busted out the news that like my aunt, her older sister, had like, a previous life before meeting her current husband and the guy I know as my uncle. I was like, wait, what? When did this happen? And she's, oh yeah, you didn't know? Like, no, you didn't tell me any of this. How would I have known that? But those secrets now I'm trying to more proactively get at those, both for, I'm sure it'll show up in the writing, but mostly just as a person. I want to round out that part of who my parents were and are as people, separate from, but also irrevocably influenced by their role as parents.
Yeah, 100%. It just reminds me that sentiment. You're like, oh yeah, like you had a whole life that has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
So I just remember, it just reminds me of just stories that our parents may not have thought about to tell us. I just remember talking to my mom about the movie Mommy Dearest, and where I didn't realize it was based on a memoir. And then it was really funny because a core memory is when I'm like really young, like under 10 maybe, where I was like, okay, Mommy Dearest. And she was like, do not ever call me that. And I just remember she was serious. And then I'm like, I discovered why. And then I eventually watched the movie, and then I was like, how scandalous it was. And was it really true? The memoir, whatever. And then I asked my mom, I was like, how was it when it came out or whatever? And she was like, I don't know. I was thinking, like, what's the big deal? Everybody was like all about the abuse, but like my mom chased me around with a whip she bought from Mexico. Like, what? Like in the kitchen. And when it would break or wear off, she'd go back to Mexico and buy another one. So that's just what it reminds me of, those stories where it's like digging a little bit deeper. That's the whole cultural thing, right? Like we're in America, it's just, oh my God, the wire hair. And here my mom is like, what? I got chased around my kitchen with a whip, and my mom would keep a fresh one around. So you did a few ride-alongs where they were like
Yes,
on
I did.
pursuit and
Yeah,
stuff like that.
Citizens Academy. I went through a whole like Citizens Academy for several weeks, and we went through all the different departments and stuff like that. And we could do ride-alongs with the police. And I just fell in love with ride-alongs because I was like, I get to ride along and I don't have to like actually do the work, but you just watch them in their element. And I just did another one, and I told them, I was like, I hope you guys don't mind if I just come along for some more, because even just for my curiosity's sake, like what happens? And it's very much like that on patrol life, but you hear them talking and having the camaraderie between their other colleagues, and they're just like regular people on the phone, and like their kid is calling, talking about like, where's the ketchup? And I'm like, oh, you too?
Yeah.
All of that stuff. And so it's really great. But yeah, like when they have to stop someone there was the last ride along that I went on. I think we were about to stop someone and they took off running, and we were and I was so scared, but I tried.
Oh no, say, were you like, let's go?
You would think. I was like holding on like this, and I was trying to be cool because I didn't want to snap. Because the recording, when you do stuff like that, recording automatically comes on, and I'm like, I don't want them to be like, oh my God, so the bending quarters and stuff. And then we had to stop because I was in there, and they're like, we're not gonna keep following them, and it was just me and the other officer, just me and her, and then
okay.
and so it was a little dangerous. And I was like, dang it. And I still think about this to this day because I'm like, those people got away. I was like, don't worry about me. It's okay if I don't have a bulletproof vest. I stay in the car you show. She tells me the button that I need to press. If she's in trouble, you press this button. I said, my fingers, I'm ready. And I'm ready to press the button, is what I told her. And she said, no, we're going to stop. So maybe next time we can go all the way with our car chase. But we'll get you next time, fellas.
This is one story I learned, and to me, it's just an incredible story. So somehow you have these 6 men. Somehow they got food, and not food, but money and clothes, and were on the train back to Budapest. And they ended up sitting in the same car as a Nazi soldier. Now, all of these guys were very well educated. They all spoke German. So they're having this great conversation with this Nazi soldier, right? So when the officer came in to get their tickets, he didn't disturb them because he figured, oh, they're with the Nazi soldier. So that was probably something that saved their butt. But when they arrived in Budapest,
you can swear, it's okay. I don't mean to downplay what the story you're talking about. I'm saying, go for it.
But when they arrived in Budapest, the Nazi soldier turned to them and said, I really enjoyed this conversation. It's been a great conversation. And said, I wish every Hungarian was just like you.
So he knew?
He didn't know. He had no clue that they were Jewish. He had no clue that they had escaped from a Nazi labor camp.
Oh my God. So he just treated them, he thought that they were straight up just like normal Hungarian people, like not on the run, not Jewish, not somebody that he should be looking out for. Oh my God.
So that president of prefrontal cortex undergoes massive development from puberty It's finally finished at age 26 for females and 28 for males before it's all reconstructed. And then your brain is actually getting close to multitasking, real multitasking, which not everybody can do, but your brain speeds up to it. When you're like preschool, the electrons travel the transmitters travel at 2 miles an hour. By the time you're 35, your brain is firing at 200 miles an hour. And so if you think about as a mom of 2 little ones and you're doing a podcast, all the stuff you have going on in your head that you're juggling, right? You're a juggler with 20 balls at once. And that teen brain, that they can't handle all that. It drops in half. The functioning of their president drops in half. So they're impulsive, they're disorganized, they're spacey, and that emotional system gets twice as active, just like a preschooler. So they have twice the emotional output as elementary age children or as adults. So when the teen yells at your parents saying, "You don't understand how I feel," they're right. You don't.
Yeah.
You can't make that much anymore. What you can do as a parent is remember when you were that age and how intense everything felt.
And it's funny because so many like readers have mentioned to me that one of the things they love specifically is that she gets that time with the bestie and gets to just like, we actually see them having fun together on the page and like they have a real, like, legitimate relationship rather than just like the bestie in name only, right? Like,
Yeah, I so appreciate even we eat romance up. There's a reason why romance sells. And like we all love a good love story. And me personally, I love the spicy scenes, but I also appreciate the female friendships, the platonic friendships.
Yeah.
Which just shows that they have a life and relationships outside of the love story where it's just, it adds depth to them. And it's just, there's something to be said about that camaraderie and about that bond, about like the people who know you before your life was like took a total 180. There's something to be said about exactly like how those friendships evolve and support like her supporting her network, her support circle. And it's appreciated and I love it. I love seeing that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was something that I really wanted to focus on in the series is I really wanted to make sure that there was examples of like women lifting up other women and like being a support network for each other. Cause especially like with Charlotte's background where she's coming out of this like hyper religious setting that's very controlling, right? She's gonna need those supports. Like she can't just be doing this all on her own. So it really felt realistic to me that she would have this network of other women that she's slowly building around her, where they're going to be there to lift her up rather than tear her down.
But like similarly for Secret Spark, I knew that there had to be something on page just because the story itself was like a little more like insta love and we want to be with each other. Yeah. And also because Joan again, she shoots fire as her superpower. And so when she gets like very emotional about things, she gets really revved up, like hot, the fire inside of her. And so I was like, well, I need to show like how she controls that during intimate moments. And I really do want to write that. I have to say though, I think my favorite thing in the whole entire book is how Joan talks about before a date, she has to shoot off fireballs in the shower. Much like how cisgendered men talk about how they have to shoot off fireballs before a date. And I just thought it was just hilarious that she'd have to be like, wait, I got to get rid of some fire. Oh, okay, I'm good. I'm going on a date now.
I love that. I love that. Because even if she tries to be discreet about it, she's, oh, I'm going to run away.
Yeah, she has to like get rid of it somehow. Turn it under the water. Okay, we're good.
Yes, it's another way that you take realistic situations and try to apply it to the superhero, supervillain world. I love it. Because that was like another funny thing. I didn't even think to connect it. Obviously, I didn't have to deal with that problem dating ever. But yeah, I imagine like you're sympathizing with men who had to kind of cool their jets and had to take steps to do. And I love it. I love it. It's so funny. It's kind of like a little nod to that.
I got you. I understand. We have to do to release our excess energy.
It's a human thing. It's a part of life. Don't make it weird.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't make it weird.
just it,
I do love Dane. It's so funny to me because when you go through edits and the process of things that happen with characters, Dane to me is the love you think you want at that age and what you think you've needed. And Dane is so used to having to protect her because they've grown up together and he's a year ahead of her in the quadrant. So they've been apart for a year. So he's become desensitized to a lot of things because of being in the quadrant for a year. And she's had a year to fantasize what she thinks that relationship will still be. And I
yeah,
think once you get there and you realize, oh, I'm not this person anymore. You've evolved into this person. I don't necessarily need you to protect me anymore. And her realizing you're not necessarily what I want. Instead, like, who am I going to choose? There's very much like the love we think we need at that age. And then as you
yeah,
grow, the love you realize that it was what you want and what is supportive and what the person who's the most supportive is also the person who's die, don't die, whatever.
you're right.
So I do love Dane. Dane's just so rigid and Dane doesn't have it within him to break rules. And he is so by the book and she's learning where this flexible area is, which is where Zayden just lives. The man, like he's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what she needs. She needs to be flexible because business is not as usual for her, just from like how she was born, the condition that she's living with. If she played by the book and didn't think outside of the box, like she would be done. That's what she needs to do. And Dane was trying to like tunnel vision, black and white. No. And I have no chance if I think that way.
Dana's so focused that she cannot survive the quadrant that he's unwilling to see ways that she could, ways for her to succeed in the quadrant. His priority is get her out. And she's like, there's no way out. My mother's gonna throw me back in here. There is no way out. And I think that's one thing is as she accepts the fact, no, I'm a writer. Like I thought just my brother and my sister were writers, and my mother, but I am too. And it's finding that strength to be who you are instead of what everyone has cast you as, especially when you do have chronic illness and they look at you as you're the weaker one or you're the one who has to be babied or things like that. And instead of being like, no, I can do this. And unfortunately, Dane doesn't see past that.
I love that because, yeah, he is such an interesting character because I feel like because he's described as so handsome and it's so funny. The highborn people, they can't deny how good looking he is. And so it's really funny how yes, he's low-born, he's the lowest low caste, but some people reluctantly, they seem like to accept his presence a little bit. It helps him that he's good looking.
Yeah.
Because I imagine that if he were not attractive, it would be it would not be as smooth sailing for him. And not that it is anyway, but you did a good job of reflecting that, like the realness of drawing on real life. Like guys at a bar are seen less creepy if they're handsome, right? Versus if a guy is approaching an unattractive guy approaching a woman the same way, or whatever. There's a double standard there, and so it's well worth it to acknowledge that. And I'm not mad at you for it, but I'm a sucker for the romance, and so it's like really clinging on to the little interactions and between Karna and Draupadi, where it was like, oh my god, is something there? And I was like hoping for it. And then I was like, fucking Krishna. I was like, damn it. And then I just love your descriptions of, oh, he was hopelessly in love with her, giving her puppy dog eyes. And I was like, yes, humble him down. I was like, Karna, like he probably has some level of confidence in himself, right? He's obviously got that ambition and that idealism, but to have him like in a situation, not only in his position, his new position, but like being thrown for a loop to a beautiful princess and he can't help himself. He's trying so hard to be respectful, but he can't help himself, but still glances at her. And I just love the fact that she was, what can I do if he wants to compete for me? I love that. But then again, there's a lot going on, but I wanted a little more of that like hopeless romantic aspect of it. But I know you had to stick some war and some politics in there. So it's like, all right, I'll let it. That's all right. I'll be patient.
This whole idea of good looks, I'm so glad that you identified it. Because so far, I've not read this in reviews, by the way. So I love this academic discussion that I'm having with you for the first time. This is what I want to explore, even in that dance which happens before the swayamvar or the wedding ritual starts, is when Draupadi has to choose a suit to dance. Had she known from beforehand that Karna was low born, she would have never even gone in that direction. But his good looks, and even he doesn't expect it because he's not conscious that he's good looking. He thinks was a low born who's just like accompanying because he's Duryodhan's friend. And he's busy having ice cream when suddenly Draupadi walks up to him and the ice cream melts over him. And so I think I found that funny, and I really want to explore that as well. But by this time, the good looks have really entrenched itself in Draupadi's head, and the fact that he's so sweet and he's able to see through her pain. But then, obviously,
Yeah.
it's always there everywhere.
Saw The Last Duel, a movie that has got Adam Driver and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. And it's about the last official duel that took place in France. And this guy rapes another man's wife. And she says, he raped me. She wanted it. She was flirting with me. So the movie is told from the rapist's perspective, from the husband's perspective, and then from the woman's perspective. And they end up having a duel over whether or not this actually occurred. But her mother-in-law goes to her and says, "Why did you say anything?" She's like, "What do you mean?" She says, "You think you're the first woman this has happened to? Be quiet and
From your
basically
own
move on with your
mom.
life." And just
Yeah.
saying, this is what happens. You just get up and go on with your life. And I'm like, and that was reality. That was, yeah. So I just think that history itself, and I'm having my own alternate universe, but I thought I am trying to be true to what was happening in this time period. But yeah, that was just so hard for women, and it was so dark, and it was so scary and awful. And so that's just going to unfortunately make its way in there. And I want to have
Mhm.
a female main character who's overcoming that, who is rising above what's happening and is literally
Yeah.
going to change the system.
Because that's her whole thing is like she wants, not only does she want to save her land and save her kingdom, but she wants to, the future generations of women, like, depend on it, depend
Yeah.
on the outcome.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because you're actually right. And I'm like, just hearing you talk about what things you learned about and in the movie, it's so true. But eventually, because so many, we don't need to get too deep into it, but that's like arguably what they bank on is us just moving on, like
Yeah.
just dealing with it and moving on. And that's like maintaining the status quo. And that's like how I feel fortunate to live in a world where people are fighting back and there's masses of people fighting back, masses of people sharing their stories. And even just like sharing stories and sharing like opinions are helpful because it's just, no, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
Like where does our power lie? What can we do? I think that's the point is where women have a lot of power, but the society doesn't want us to realize that.
Yeah.
And
And
I think it starts, yeah.
I think, talk about that a lot in this book, that
Yeah.
women were good enough to send over for this tribute, but they were not worth fighting for. They were not worth protecting. They were not worth going to war over and keeping from this happening. As I was reading this stuff and studying, it's in the book as well, but that we look at the Greek myths and what do all the monsters have in common? They're almost primarily all female because it's about this male hero conquering this female monster. There's symbolism there. There's a reason it is that way because men feared women's power and their destructive powers was their creative power. So they were subdued and kept down. And I thought everything kind of points towards that. You talk about like Amazons, because Amazons were like real. They were like Scythians, but the Greeks hated them. Oh my gosh, did they hate them? Their girls actually had a ceremony in Greece where they put aside their Amazon. We don't know what all happened in it. It occurred, so that they go and become a good wife and a model wife and not be like the Amazons were, where they were living on their own, had their own laws and doing what they wanted and going to war. And yeah, it's just something that men have always feared. And it's just the more you study history, the more you find that kind of stuff out. And what's hard for me too is I love women's history so much. Like I was reading a book, and it was about these two German princesses. Like the men were off to war. So these two princesses are not only defending the kingdom against invaders, but then one of the sisters goes out and starts invading the enemy on their turf. And so it was a Roman historian who's writing about it. And he literally says in the book, "Why am I writing about this? Who cares about this?" And he changes the subject to something else. I'm like, I want to know what happened to the German princesses. I want to find out. Tell me. So just that it was so rejected and we don't know. There's so much we don't know. It's so frustrating to me. But yeah, I do love women's history, but there's just so much darkness in it.
And that's why I started playing with the whole time thing too, is because like I believe in ghosts. I've seen ghosts. And I call it ghosts, but maybe it's just a vision of energy left behind from the past.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so like with hearing something or seeing something out of the corner of your eye, I thought, let's make that part of the story. Like my characters could be seeing those things happening. And it's easy to brush it off as, oh, my mind was just playing tricks on me. But maybe that wasn't it. Maybe you really did see an impression from the past or the future. Like
It's funny because I feel like there's two types of people, or maybe three types of people. It's like they either don't believe in it at all, or they do, but they don't mess with it. I'm one of those people where I'm like, I'm not negating it. I can't tell my personal experience with the paranormal with the Ouija board. And ever since then, it was like when I was 15 years old. And I don't even know how much of that is real, but I remember I was legitimately spooked. It's a core memory. And I haven't messed with the Ouija board since. And
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not supposed to, yeah, you're not supposed to be in the room if you're not participating. So I'm like, you guys have fun. I'm going to remove myself from the situation. No, thank you. I don't care if
Yeah.
I'm being silly or stupid. And then there's people probably in your camp who are like my mom too, where she's, no, what's this? You see this mark in the picture? And I'm kind of like, Mom, maybe that was just a water spot. She's like, no,
Yeah.
Megan, like,
Yeah, no, I don't.
things like that.
Things like Ouija boards, I don't mess with either. And then all those ghost hunter shows on TV, I get so sucked into them, but then I can't sleep all night. Like I really have to monitor myself. Don't go there. And so I just like in this book, it's just so lightly skimming the surface of that world. So
Yeah.
anybody who doesn't believe, you can just read the book without being offended in any
Yeah.
way.
It's okay. No, it's not offensive at all. It's just what's the suspension of disbelief, right? You just got to respect the work for what it is.
At the end of the day, I just felt for her because this one woman, this one incident, this one trip just changed so much.
Unravels her whole life. I was interested. I was
Yeah.
like, can you unravel a person's life in 3 days?
It
And how could you do it in a way that's convincing and organic? I was interested in the challenge of that, of step by step, what would happen, and taking someone who is a bit of a worst case scenarist, take them on that journey. One of my favorite genres is what I call like woman going through something, or
Yeah.
woman having a
Women's fiction, or women are always going through something.
So this is
That's
something. Yeah, this
amazing.
is the story of Laura. Laura is living the life she thinks she's supposed to want at the outset of the book. Successful lawyer on the rise, great boyfriend, her own apartment, living the life in New York. And then, yeah, when this woman disappears on this vacation, her life begins to unspool, even though she thinks she's doing the right thing. And if you strip everything away, my hope is that the reader comes away with can she actually choose the life she actually wants versus the life she thinks she's supposed to want.
Some of those points were, and Rilke, you mean Rainier?
Yeah.
Maybe that's like part of it, where like this book spoke to me at certain points because I remember discovering a quote. I remember it distinctly. I think it was like 5 years ago. I just remember I was like in a really bad place in my life. So I've been struggling with depression and anxiety for years, but I remember going through a particularly bad time. I had asked my husband, like, okay, I want some time to myself because I got 2 little boys. And I think I was pregnant with the second one at the time. So it was like there was chemical, like
Totally, all the hormones
all
are-
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I asked him, like, hey, do you care if after this one goes to bed, if I go see a movie by myself? I just needed to unwind and relax. And I went to go see Jojo Rabbit. And the quote at the end of the story, so I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. I recommend it 100%.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it. But at the quote at the end, the quote that was like displayed right before the credits started rolling was a quote by Rilke. And it meant so much to me that I posted. It's on that quote behind me, and it's, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror, just keep going, no feeling is final. And that just spoke to me so much at that time in my life. It was like I got chills, and I got so emotional just sitting there and like the almost empty theater, like staring at the screen.
Yeah.
Like it was it spoke to
I
me. Yeah.
I love that. And also just those moments where, I don't know, like you're primed to receive something and the universe is primed to give it. And it's funny that you went to when you were describing that movie, I was like, that's so funny that you chose that movie to go unwind to.
I know.
You're
What?
like, I know
Yeah,
exactly
'cause
what'll
it
calm me down.
Yeah.
But then there it was, these little gifts that make all the difference, and what such fits and starts, but that feeling of like receptivity, or just being open to, you have to trust that like part of your mind is scanning the world for what it needs. And
and it's hungry for it. And so when these little offerings present themselves, and I'm just hoping that happens to me for this beginning of this next project, because you really need, it's like you feel so adrift. And then something like that just comes like an anchor, and it's okay, I got this.
I consider myself very lucky that I can probably count on two hands in the 3 years of the account that like I've had mean people say mean things.
Oh, okay.
I'm so lucky for that though. I am so lucky that I have just not, because the people are out there that are like, they'll go somewhere just to say something mean just because it like maybe gives them their only happiness in the day, being like, this poem fucking sucked. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
like, I hope that you feel better. I don't know. I like, okay.
And well, it's just also, okay, this is my author space. This is not your reader
I know,
space.
good thing I didn't write it for you. I don't know. Yeah, but then
Yeah.
that feeds into it. Then I'm like into it. Then I'm like, it's not for, you can feed it. You can go back and forth. But I try to be like,
Right.
I hope that you feel better now that you got that out. I hope that, okay. And
That's such a mature
no, I'm
and
not
healthy way
mature.
to look
Oh
at it.
no. Like it takes all of me. Please. Are you kidding me? I have to like duct tape myself to elsewhere, like away from my phone to not be. I 100% want to do that. But like I just like can't, you just can't. And then even if you are, then you don't respond, or you are just like, have a good day. Like, I hope you feel better. Then you fucking think about it for the rest of the day anyway. It's not like it goes away. You know what I mean? So it like really does.
But
It
that
just
response, just be like, okay, thanks for your input. Have a nice day. That drives them
Yeah.
crazy because they're not getting a reaction out of it that they expect of you.
I-
It's okay trolling a troll. It's, oh, I hope you feel better after that comment. Like, see you later. It's just, it's so funny because like you could be petty, but like maybe in a healthy way.
Yeah. I'm
Because I think that
trying.
response, like even you, like taking that restraint and be like,
Yeah, and there's a lot
no,
of it. I
good
drive
point.
myself crazy. I'm like, and then I'm like in the shower, like brushing my teeth, and I'm like, I should have said, and it's just that I'm like, this is how people go crazy. This is and like it's so easy to feed into that energy that is just nothing energy. It's just like, why are we like, what are we? And your body tenses and you start sweating and you get angry and your jaw clenches and your shoulders go up and it's like unhealthy. Like it is, oh my gosh, this is sickness. Like it's a sickness, those exchanges and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, okay, I can't do that.
And then the other thing I didn't know how to deal with was kind of girl culture. Like, people were pretty friendly with me, which was helpful. I had girlfriends pretty quickly,
Yeah.
but I didn't understand why we got in the car and drove around at night. Go to a pizza store or just drove around looking for boys. That would just never.
You're yeah, I could how you were like, is this what
What
you
are we
guys
doing
are
here?
applying for? Yeah. Because what would you have been used to
I would have
doing
been
like,
used to
as a young?
the expat community. So we would gather and have parties, right? The
Yeah.
young people, the kids or high schoolers or whatever we were, have a dance. Even though my parents were Southern Baptist, we did. And so we have a small community, and we were not driving cars in cities in Nigeria. It was more a smaller enclave.
Okay.
We had been listening to American pop music, however, in Nigeria. We listened to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like the Beatles were just
They were
global, so
global,
every
absolutely.
yeah. That's what's like the beauty of it. It's like music can still you can find connection with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that because I'm like I at the end of the day, I feel like if someone asked me like, "Oh, who's your favorite musician or your favorite band?" I'm like, I fell in love with the Beatles as a teenager, and I'm still like, if the Beatles start playing, I can be so comfortable with like hours of songs.
Yes.
And
And when
yeah.
I hear a Beatles song, if it came out, all of them came out while I was in Nigeria. So when I hear them, I can see exactly where I was on the soccer field when I first heard it, or exactly where I was under that silk cotton tree. It takes
Oh my
me
God.
to where I first heard it. It doesn't take
Oh,
me
that's
anywhere
amazing.
in the US.
The moment I became a writer was when I was about 14 years old. I was working as a good humor man, and I earned some money to buy my mother a bottle of perfume. And I went into a department store, and I went to the counter, and asked the sales lady what was the right kind of perfume to buy. And as I was talking to her, I looked behind me, and there was a little girl who was there with her nanny. She must have been about 4 years old. And she started to pull down her underwear in the middle of the department store. And the nanny said, "Stop that. You're as bad as your mother." And I thought, there's a story there. And that's the moment I decided I want to write that story.
Oh my God. And a 14-year-old
Yeah,
Peter.
yeah. So that's what it's been all about ever since then.
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. I can't imagine just an adolescent boy just being like, oh, there's a story in that.
Yeah. Because it's not just the little girl.
The cogs were turning before
Yeah.
you couldn't even help
Yeah, it's the
yourself.
relationship between the nanny and the mother, and what was that? Yeah, that's a
Oh,
narrative right
wow.
there.
You incorporated that where she could people out.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
by just trying to be like, how do you subtly tell someone like, "Hey, go to the doctor"? I don't
You're gonna die. You might want to see it.
she's like with one of her classmate who's got cancer, like she sees a little gray and she's, "Hey, when's the last time you got checked?" And it's just fucking weird.
Yeah.
It was such a realistic like interaction and I loved it cuz yeah, it's creepy and it's hard to be in that position to be like, how do I approach this? Like
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was interesting. I don't want to use the word fun, but it was an interesting thing to explore her world after, where she tells herself, you can't save people because now I realize there are butterfly effects, but she can't not save people because that's just inherently who she is. So the reader gets to see those struggles as she's trying to tell herself, well, you can't save them because what if they go off to do something terrible? But you got to save them. So that struggle being very real. And to her, it's less about, I think, the weirdness because she's been doing that her whole life. And now it's more about the fear of, well, what happens after? And am I responsible for somebody else's actions or not?
I love a messy story, and like when you put characters into like when you shake things up, ruffle feathers. I love it, especially poor Walt. We'll try to be spoiler free, but Walt he was on a little roller coaster of acceptance there.
Yep. So Walt is Margaret's
Yeah.
husband. So for those who are tuning in, and he
Yeah.
travels a really interesting journey too. I mean, the main characters are the 4 members of the book club, but the husbands also matter. And Walt in particular does have a real transformation in his life. And it's good because he needed one.
I know. I was like, but we always want to look at the husbands too, because that's one thing that also that I was surprised to reflect on is that just how nobody likes change, right? And how much this book really did shake up things for men. And
Yeah.
I sympathize with men in that era to an extent
Yes.
who had things certain way and had
Mhm.
things taken care of, and then it's all of a sudden their wives are being empowered. Be like, no, this is normal to want more. It's
Right.
okay to want more. And it's not radical.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many people who feel that same way. So many wives and women who feel that same way.
Right.
And yeah, it got me thinking about I guess I can empathize with Walt a little bit in that respect
Mhm.
for sure.
But I think, what Walt learns is that for a lot of people, the very, very stultifying gender roles, that this is the only way to be a woman or this is the only way to be a man, was really just as confining for men as for women in a lot of ways. And so
Yeah.
when that change came along, it's allowed a situation where for a lot of people who choose that, husbands and wives can be more of an equal partner in the marriage. And I wanted to write that because I've been married for more than 40 years. And, me being able to have a career has actually made it possible for my husband to explore things that he wants to try, to have some, chance to chase his own dreams too. And in the days when it was all just, he's the breadwinner and it's all on his shoulders, gosh, that's a lot of pressure on a guy. And so,
Yeah.
when the burden is
Yeah.
shared, it makes for a little more equality in the relationship. And it can, in many cases, allow both members of the marriage to be able to have a chance to explore and try new things and push their boundaries a little bit as far as what they might want to do with their lives.
Absolutely.
It just reminds me of the Bridgerton, and Bridgerton is not shy on the spicy levels. Obviously, of course, not surprising that something like that would have happened, or that language.
Yeah.
And that makes me think so too, like in that time period, how so much like of a plot, the lack of knowledge about sex could be.
Yeah.
A lot of these characters, the reason that some of their conflicts are coming about, or their concerns and things like that, are it's just miscommunication or misunderstanding, because there's not what's like a first topic, and women are completely like in the dark until, oh, by the way, on your wedding night, this is going to be expected of you. When they're turned off, and then all of a sudden they got to be like, okay, by the way, this is going to happen. And it just makes me think about that. Like, it's all like that sexuality part of it, that like openness part of it, where, Emily, she did not shy away from that at all because of her experiences. But even it was really funny because she was trying to act proper. She was trying to like, even though she wasn't like phased, but she was like, wait, what would a governess do in this position? Wait, this isn't right. Because I'm thinking like if she were on her own or didn't have so much at stake, she wouldn't have been so like, no, this isn't, I gotta act proper.
And I think there was like a really big class divide in knowledge about sex at the time too, in the sense that the ton ladies and like the daughters of dukes and whatnot, they really were kept like completely in the dark. But then you had an entire class of people who were not, because they were sold into marriage, or there were sex workers on the street, and so they were a lot more, I think, knowledgeable about kind of real life in some ways.
Yeah.
And so Emily and Zach kind of come from that background. And like at one point she was like, how would a proper lady say this? And she's like, oh, she wouldn't, And so, and then two, I think, so a lot of people, even me included, think that you're used to think that Victorians were like super stuffy about sex. And like in some ways they were, especially women. So like there's some really cool websites out there that have photography from Victorian era, and they are explicit about the things that even Victorians were doing at the time. And so people are like, but really, like they were a lot like us and what we're doing, including having all sorts of toys and things like that. So it's really interesting to go on and see out there, and you're like, oh, this is not quite what I thought.
So I'm gonna get into it because okay, Love Through the Lens series. I'm gonna confess to you here. I was so sucked into camera chemistry that my eye doctor appointment.
That honestly makes me really happy.
Straight up, like I was like so sucked in, and I was like, I don't know, it was like in the evening, like after work, whatever. And I was like, okay, I got some time. And I just got so sucked in because yeah, it's a novella.
Yeah.
And then I was like, before I knew it, I was like, oh shit, I have an eye doctor.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like I had a timer. It was like, oh no, there was a reason why I sat down why I had time to read it for something else. And then I totally missed the something else. Kudos to you. I forgot that I had an appointment because I was reading your book.
And that's the thing, like, it gets you laid. Men, if your wife or
Seriously.
girlfriend wants steamy romance, let her read it. It's gonna get you laid. I had one of my alpha readers. She was so funny because anytime I posted like a spicy chapter, like I have a doc where I post a chapter, and sometimes she'd come back like half an hour, 45 minutes later, like, my husband thanks you. So yeah, like it.
Where her husband is. Oh, did Anna write anything new?
No, but yeah,
I love
It's
that.
a whole conversation. It's very ongoing because I would say it's probably 50 Shades of Grey that opened the door to smut, or it not opened the door, but made it mainstream. I would say because there was always like
and
those
even
Harlequin
then,
books, and
yeah.
it was tamer overall, but those books existed. They have like our grandmothers would read those books.
Oh,
So
100%.
they have
Oh
been
my God.
existing, but then 50 Shades really made it mainstream, and in the past 10 years maybe, the amount of smut in books has really gone off, and I love that for us. Like
it's just
empowerment for
normalize
women.
it.
Yeah, and
Just normalize it. Like it doesn't have to be this like pearl clutching thing. Like it's like this is what we enjoy, and it's a human thing. It's like part of human nature. Don't make it weird. Like, just don't shame people. I'm not about to shame people for watching or using porn. It's just as much as like, I'm not into dark romance. I'm not into, for example, like knife play or that. But like for people who are, I'm like, dude, like that's like you do it responsibly and that's what gets you off and that's fine for you. I'm not about to shame you. And that's just not that's not my jam.
One of the difference again with books and with porn is that there is always, like always, less in dark romance, but very often there is this big question of consentment, like consent.
Oh, yeah.
And in books, and that's something that I really make sure is always in my books and in my smutty scenes, is that there is consent. Not always vocal, but at least there is enthusiastic consent. And that's something that in porn is not really there. And it's often a bit forceful the way it happens, or it's not. I think people can say whatever they want about this smut versus porn debate, but I think books aren't as damaging and will never be as damaging as porn because, again, it doesn't exploit women to exist. And it's, I don't know how to express it, but it's less. At worst, we get disappointed because the guy didn't last 3 hours, like our book boyfriends do. You know, that's what we get.
Yeah.
Whereas men are gonna. I know that some women get strangled without their consent because guys are seeing this in porn, or like they get their cheek slapped or stuff like that because that's important. And I think that is infinitely more harmful than ending up disappointed because the guy.
Because they're seeing these like scenes or whatever acted out, and these women, they're being paid to be treated like that.
And
like,
she's with pleasure, and the guys are like,
yes,
women like this. No, we do not. Or
it's
not
it's. I know, yeah, 100%. Yeah, there are women who like. I'm not. Yeah, again, I'm not going to shame women who like that gets their socks off and they love it. That's fine. But exactly, yeah, like men have to have a realistic expectation. It's like women, it's in romance and smut, women are treated like with respect, and it's a safe space for us to explore what we like and what we don't like, and where the man like it respects and wants and worships them and wants that conversation. Whereas in porn, it's just expected and it's out, and there's none of that. You found love on the trail. Who am I talking to? I thought that was so cute. Like during the little love story, like the little moments, like he was like, "Oh, I got this chapstick for you," or something. I was like, that is so fucking adorable. I was like, "Get it, Sally. Go, get your man." I was just like a little giddy part of like your journey. And I thought it was so fun and funny to get to almost like just experiencing through your story, through your words.
Yeah, to see, just to have, because now I've been married for 20 years, but like that, it really was fun to write about and to remember those little feeling that nervous spark and the what is this? And I think he likes me and I like him.
Yeah.
And all of that was just really fun to write about and really fun to remember. And can I tell you two things about the chapsticks? The very first day I met my now husband on the trail, he had the next day we were at this hiker festival and he came up to me and he gave me a little thing of chapstick and was like, "Hey, I heard you said you were out, so I just got some at the store for you." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what do I owe you?" And he was like, "Nothing."
And he's already in love with you.
He's like, "Nothing." And so every year in my stocking, he gives me Burt's Bees chapstick.
Oh my gosh.
And has never been like, it's because of that chapstick. And honestly, I did not remember and remembered it, but I didn't put the two together. And just this last year, he was like reading a draft of the book, and he was like, "I think I described it as Carmex." And he was like, "No, it was Burt's Bees." And I was like, "Was it? Oh, I forgot." And he was like, "Why do you think I give you Burt's Bees every year?" And I was like, "Oh, I did it. I didn't know why." And so he's been doing this romantic gesture every year for 20 years, and
oh my God,
didn't get it. And then the day the book came out, I got up and took my son to school, and then my husband had left for work by the time I got back, and I came home, and there was a little thing of Carmex on my pillow, and I was like, "Oh, still got it."
Did you have to do like any other research, or because you got some like, you know, like industry specific things going on just with the nature of their stuff? But I was just like curious, was there any researching you had to do? Is your Google search history, a little bit questionable?
Yeah, all
Stuff
the
like that.
alphabet agencies definitely have me on their radar. The biggest thing that I did research wise, but I did this way before I started this chapter of the club, was actual New Orleans. So I've been there several times. My husband's best friend, and he was the best man at our wedding, is a police officer in New Orleans. So like, if I ever have to have like questions about like how the police work and everything like that, he's a great resource. I can always pick up the phone. He's like, oh, this is for a
perfect.
book
Yeah.
again. Like, yes, just answer the question. But when it comes to like the industry that he's in, I actually sat down with a very good friend of mine who is a professional dominatrix. And she was actually the inspiration for another character in the very first generation. She's actually on the cover. So I have a very good relationship with her, and she answered tons and tons and tons of questions because she's done work, I guess you could say, in Reno at the brothels. So I got a ton of information from her. But yeah.
I know, God, to be a fly in the wall, because one of my childhood friends, she ended up doing that for a long time. She started moving away from that because she's like, I don't want to be doing this forever. And plus, there was like because of the lawsuits that were going. I think it was involved with either OnlyFans or something like that. It was something like some website. There was like this scandal or lawsuit, and so she like that kind of changed things for her. But yeah, it was kind of funny. She would show me videos of like her clients that would send her like, oh, this is my idea for next time. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. I don't want to like kink shame, but
Yeah.
I was just like I don't even know the half of it.
Listen.
Like I just realized how uninformed I am about like what other people like. That's like maybe taboo.
I just
like it's so fascinating.
I was like 20 years ago when you started doing this, I could understand it, but we're creeping up on like mid 40s now. Like homegirl, she was like, my wrists are killing me. I was like,
I want readers to be able to take whatever they need away from it, which is going to be different things for every reader, I think. But ultimately, I will say that if you read Original Sinner and you miss the very heavily feminist, very anti-capitalist, very politically charged themes in it, you're probably reading it wrong.
If you're just like clutching your pearls, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
No, there's messages in there. There's undertones
Yes,
there.
there is definitely messages and undertones that are meant to be taken away, and ones that a lot of people will find very controversial. But I will say that probably the people who would find it controversial are probably not reading this series.
Maybe they just aren't your audience. Maybe they just aren't your audience. And I assume you've already accepted that.
Yes,
I mean, like
I have very much accepted that, and I will say this is just an offhanded thing. When the book first came out and my publisher started like running ads, we had a couple people comment on some of the ads they were like, this book is of the devil. And I was like, I think you missed the point.
Yeah, it is.
My own I was like, yeah, okay. And so it was just, I had a moment when I told my writer friends who like as I was looking at this, because like I was traveling for the book signings at the time that this comment popped up, and I was like, I've made it because I pissed off the Jesus people.
That's how you know.
Yes.
That's how you know. That's so funny. You're like, I've made it. I made it to the Jesus people.
So my favorite, I think you always have scenes, like at least for me, I don't know about other writers, let me speak for all writerdom. You always have scenes like when I start, this scene pops out to me and I know this belongs in this, but I can't wait to write this scene. And there were a couple of them. And the first one was when she throws the daggers at Zayden's head. And he's like, you missed. And she's like,
yeah,
the backup and showing that she could not only work with her brain, but also she does have some physical prowess. She passes in that agility test and she can throw a dagger because it's something that's within her power. And when he says, you really are a violent little thing, aren't you? And I love that he calls her violence and he sees what's in her true nature before she does even. So I loved writing that. And then I don't think that's giving. And then I know that give everything away. Threshing was something that lived in my head, and how threshing went down, which is when the dragons choose who they choose. And the scene where Xaden steps onto the mat where he has figured out what she's been doing to beat all her opponents, and he takes her to the mat. To me, that was the most fun to write because I love sexual tension. And it's always like, and there's a moment she's like, "Am I attracted? I'm not attracted to toxic men. Am I attracted? Ooh, maybe I am. Maybe I am getting attracted to toxic. Ooh, this is not okay." But that was the most fun for me. Is in those positions where he's trying to teach her and he's knocking her on her ass constantly, but you also have, "Hello, beautiful man."
She's liking it a little bit.
But then I also think it's logical for her to be like, "Ooh, am I supposed to like this? Is this it's okay? Is this unhealthy? Is this?" And we tried really hard to make sure that their relationship was as healthy as possible, given the fact that it's
Yeah.
enemies. So yeah, that was the most fun. What was the most fun to read that doesn't give it away? So I can turn it around on you.
All right. I think some of when they're just them getting to know each other, I liked some of the dialogue. I think especially when there's one thing where she asks him like, "What's your favorite food?" And he's chocolate cake. Stop being weird. It's just like little things like that where because it shows like a different side of Zayden. You get to know him more. He's a little like because he comes off as like this hard, rugged, like no nonsense, like lethal dude, but he's also a person, like, he's so layered, there's so much more to him. Yeah, he's got his secrets, and once the reader learns with Violet, like, once you start peeling back those layers and get to know his reasons and just getting to know a little bit more about him with her, I really enjoyed just some of yeah, where she got to a point where she didn't mind, like, asking him those silly little things, and he was just like, why? I just
Right.
love that just, like, stop being weird, like, what
Right. Like, why would you want? And I think Zayden is so guarded because for obvious, I'm not obvious to the readers, but as you read it, you get to know why Zayden's so guarded. But when push comes to shove, he's 22 when this book starts and 23 when it ends. So he's a 23-year-old guy. And I know a lot in fantasy, we've got like 500-year-old men and 300-year-old men who are 1,000 and have fallen for the 19-year-old girl. Not saying I'm against it. I'm not definitely not against it. But it is way too 23. And so you do have those things where when she's, "Yeah, what is your favorite food?" Or "What is this?" He's, "What is your deal?"
Yeah, like, going back to Game of Thrones when, like, the last season came out and everyone was so upset about how Daenerys' storyline came out. I was there rooting for her. I was like, "Burn it all down, bitch." If you haven't been paying attention or if you don't dive deeper into the meanings of it, it's just, yeah, you knew this was gonna happen, unfortunately. It's not just, like, her family history, but it's kinda like she was such a powerhouse and she was just, like, came up from against all challenges, against all obstacles. She came up and she used sex to change the game with the Dothraki. She got her dragons and also practiced empathy. And then of course, she ran into mistakes and of course, she encountered obstacles. But then, like, along the way, I was like, even if you go mad and you want to burn it all, I'm still right behind you. I'm
Right? Like,
still
yeah,
like,
I'm down King's Landing and still be queen. Like, I was one of those people. I was furious about the ending of Game of Thrones. That thought just so many things that I was waiting for. And I think this is what happens. The guys who were the showrunners were not writers. They were like Nepa baby hires, and they had George R. Martin's source material to work from, which is why it was so good in the beginning. And then once I didn't have more, it all went to crap. And I thought, you killed Arya's arc. We didn't get to see her killing Cersei, which I was waiting for. And
I
Jamie making a
know.
terrible decision. And I thought maybe she's going to kill
I wanted
Jamie
to
and
see her
take
wear
his
more
face.
faces.
No, I thought she would kill Jamie and take his face. And then Cersei thinks she's safe. And then Arya's, nope, me. I would have loved to see that. But just everybody had such a terrible ending. It was just so badly done. And I thought with Daenerys, I go be queen, burn everybody down. They deserve it. This is a terrible place.
Yeah.
No, she has to be stopped. I'm like, no, she doesn't. Let her rule. Let her burn everything down. Let's go. But yeah, I'm with you. I get mad that
She's
she died.
breaking the wheel.
Yep.
That's what her whole thing was like.
Yep.
I'm done. Like, it's gonna happen, and you guys fucking suck, and you deserve it. You destroyed everything that was important to me. You destroyed everything that I had gained up until now. It was just like, ugh. And then it was like, oh, so many people were like writing to the showrunners to like, or the HBO or whatever to like redo. I'm like, how about you take that energy and write to your representatives and be like, push for women's rights, or we don't like. It's like I'm like I'm trying to tip the line here because I don't want to get too into it, but we're getting fired up. I was like, no, I'm right there with you. Yeah, exactly. It was just like, no, I was supporting her storyline, but I think even George R. R. Martin said the ending was how he planned it, but it would have taken 4 or 5 more seasons to get there. It
And
was like they
yeah, rushed it. And so it doesn't feel real. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like what she would actually do. I'm like, this is not the person I know. This is not the compassionate, loving leader who cares about everybody. That she doesn't do this in 5 minutes, which is what you've done. You've flashed a completely different person. And I didn't like it. I actually thought, I was watching it, I thought Jon Snow would die and that she would be pregnant. And that's who would rule next was, this baby. But
Yeah.
I thought when she
That
died, I'm
would have
like, are you
made
kidding
sense.
me? Yes. I thought I was
And then he
shocked.
vanished. It was like, okay, no spoiler warnings. It's what, I don't know, been 8 years since this show ended.
They're supposed
And
to
then
do
it's
like
like
a
still,
sequel to that, talking about him getting his own show up in the
oh
north.
yeah, like it's
Yeah.
called Snow or something like The
Yeah.
King Beyond the Wall or whatever, which I'm like, it's like the House of the Dragon too. It's like, we're still gonna watch it.
Yeah. We are.
In our house, we call it Hot D because it's like HOTD, House
Yeah.
of the Dragon. So it's
Funny.
like that toxic ex you keep going back to. You're still curious about the world. There's something about it where you're just gonna keep bringing you back.
When I was reading like your background and stuff and how you like lived in a handful of places, which I think is super cool. And I imagine that just opens up your not your worldview in general, but as a writer, like just the creativity. If you can be inspired by so many different things, places you go. That's so funny though. I imagine it was just like a little like side quest just to get to where you needed to be. But no,
Yeah.
that sounds really cool and fascinating. And I think I would just be worried about maybe not being attacked, but just being pickpocketed by monkeys because I'm sure they are like,
Oh, yeah.
around. They're used to being around humans. There's probably people using that to their advantage. I'm just like,
They're scary. Like monkeys in Asia, like you don't mess around. Like some of them will they'll literally jump on your back and open your bag and take stuff out of your backpack. Like they steal like glasses off people's like space. Like
right off the face. Oh my God.
yeah, it's scary. Like some people are like, oh, look at the monkeys, and I'm like, no, run away. This is
Don't look them in the eye. Don't. So they know that. That's something that I would definitely be like, oh, fuck, there's another one. Let's go.
Yeah.
You're like, where my zippers, where my bags, okay, everything's connected. Like, just, but we wear contacts all day, every day. Oh,
Yeah. You like hold your bag like this.
yeah,
Head down.
exactly.
The book before this was a nonfiction book about snakes as a symbol, basically. So snakes in pop culture. You think of Britney Spears dancing with banana or snakes in a plane. Snakes in pretty much every religion. Snakes are featured in some way or a symbol of typically evil, occasionally not. And one of the things I researched for that book was science following Pentecostal churches, which are illegal in all states except for West Virginia now. But 50 years ago, were very popular. There are thousands of them spread across the South, mostly in Appalachia. And I was very fascinated with how genuine the faith seemed. That's what surprised me the most when I was researching it. If you look at kind of contemporary services, first of all, it's difficult to find footage because people know that this is a strange practice and they don't want to be judged for it. So the ones that are open to the public, they have a performative quality. But if you look at something like the documentary Holy Ghost People, which was directed by Peter Adair in the 1960s, it's lively. And not just the snakes. The people are lively. They're playing bluegrass music. It's a diverse crowd. In that particular documentary, the sermons about, it's like a civil rights sermon in favor of supporting the civil rights movement. And you're thinking, oh, this is a place, I could join this congregation. And then after about an hour, they bring out these burlap sacks. Yeah, you're shaking your head. They bring out these burlap sacks. And they bring out venomous snakes. And it's all based around this one verse in the book of Mark, which says that he shall drink poison and handle dangerous snakes and shall not be harmed. And that was really fascinating to me. And whenever that kind of just stayed on my mind after I finished this nonfiction book. And I'd had this idea of retelling measure for measure around a serpent handling church years ago, a decade ago, but I didn't really have the knowledge. I didn't really have the sensitivity, honestly, I think, to write this story. And the research gave me that ability, or at least gave me the confidence to think, let's try this, because I think there's an interesting parallel between Shakespeare's play, which is very much about genuine faith, but also abusive faith, sort of abuse of power. I thought there's really something interesting there in these churches as well, where there's a lot of genuine faith. There's a lot of potential for abuse of power because they are so isolated. These communities tend to be isolated.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. One of the things that's important in the book is just the power
of books. And because, as I said, of course, they start off with the feminine mystique, but they read all kinds of books, and these books impact them in different ways. And I've been a member of a book club for, decades and decades. So, and I love book clubs. And I think they're really important because, well, they do a few things. Number one, they get us out of our reading rut, right? Because most of us, we like what's comfortable and we may tend to read the same kind of book over and over. I know that's kind of my thing. I can't tell you how many books I have read over the years that I would never have picked up if my book club hadn't said, this is the book this month. And sometimes,
Yeah.
I hate it just as much as I predicted I would. But a lot of times I end up finding a book or a genre that I didn't know that I loved. So there's that. And it gives you this chance to, to talk and exchange ideas. Really, the worst book clubs are the ones where everybody loves the book because there's nothing to talk about. Point, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, well,
Yeah.
okay, let's drink wine. And then I really
Yeah.
love the ones where like half the people loved it, half the people hated it. But my favorite book clubs are the ones where I go in and I have a pretty set opinion. And by the time I leave, listening to my friends has changed my opinion. And I think that's so valuable, I think it's really good, especially right now. I think we live in a time where everybody is like, well, this is the side I've come down on and I'm immovable. And you know what?
Absolutely.
It's okay to change your mind about things. It's
Seriously, it's okay.
It's totally okay to listen to sound arguments and say, you know what? I hadn't thought about that. That's a very good point. I may
Yes.
need to reconsider my
100%.
position. Yeah. So that's a really good thing. And I love that. So I love that books are bringing them together.
I love that you included that sentiment of she felt more comfortable in certain
Yeah.
languages and she felt more at home speaking, like she felt that connection immediately with people who were speaking languages that she was comfortable with. And I love that too. That was also another curious thing because I'm assuming you grew up in the UK and so there it's so different, diverse, like it's super diverse here in America, but at the same time, you don't have that. It's the US, it's like we all speak English, most of us speak English, but then it's like in Europe, anybody there can probably speak 2 or 3 languages. So
Not the
it's just because of
English,
the
actually.
proximity.
We're really bad at learning languages, and I am as well. That's a generalization to say we're lazy. Some people are very good at languages. I'm not, but
Sure,
we do tend to be a bit. We assume people are going to speak English,
and usually that assumption is correct. It's just not there first. I found some reassurance in the notion that, and you mentioned this earlier, of where it's pretty much like you can overdo it and it might not have the impact that you think it would. Like you could push them towards a certain thing, or you can have strict rules, or you can have like high expectations of them, but genetically they are who they are. But it's just like when they're lacking things or when they're encountering like obstacles and challenges and like where it's their basic needs aren't being met, then that's when that starts to affect them. So I think it was reassuring and I felt better because I tend to be, sometimes I feel like a lazy mom, but or like my husband says, I'm a sucker. I'm like soft for them.
Yeah.
I think I just have a lot of patience and sometimes I just pick my battles. And it's sometimes like when I do snap and when I do raise my voice and stuff, and it's exactly like you said, it's okay to lose it. Because afterwards I try to make a point to saying to my kids, especially the 7-year-old, it's like, I'm sorry I lost my cool. I don't like doing that to you. And I didn't appreciate that you weren't listening to me, A, B, and C, whatever. And I would say I definitely do that better with my kids. And I make a point to do it than I do with my husband. Because I want to also show them good examples. But my husband and I are so different. We're just like back and forth, but we don't always come back to reconciling in front of them. And so that's like where I worry about that discord. But your text and like some of your notes that
on what you said, you hit a lot of different things. I'm trying to take notes over there.
I know I'm all over the place. Yeah.
The important thing is like the repair, and you have that approachment with your kids. And it's also very normal for parents to have different approaches. That's classic. Kids get it. They understand it because they have different teachers. Some teachers are pretty strict. Others are a little more casual. So they know what they can get away with who. They figure that out really fast, and with mom and dad too. Now, the key for partner. So if you're a parent with a partner, I was a parent for about 10 years, but if you have a partner, is having time to yourselves to discuss how are we doing as a team.
I could see that his parents were strict, like, but it was also like they were raising American kids when they were not, didn't really always consider themselves fully American. Like I talked to some authors who are like that. Either they are in your father's place where they were raised as like they were American kids growing up, but they had to find their role and with respecting the culture, whether or not they had a choice in their normal lives versus in trying to enjoy American life that what had to offer from
Yeah,
my
it's interesting you say that because it actually what was going on at this time was that there were a bunch of kids hanging around on street corners not knowing what to do with themselves after school. And a lot of the city officials were worried that these guys were going to turn into gangs, which they, informally were. So they created these things called settlement houses for after school activities where you could do intramural sports, you could take science classes. And in one of those settlement houses, they had a theater and they were putting up little stage productions. And that's where Leonard caught the bug. That's where it happened. They had to do something with these kids who didn't know what to do with themselves
That's
because they were
amazing.
not assimilated. They're living in this very insular neighborhood. Their parents don't know what to do with them. They don't know about America. So these settlement houses were very instrumental in helping these kids transition into the culture that they were now living in. And this was key for my dad to catch the acting bug.
I want to dive into some of your Irish inspiration because I was like Irish Catholic is very much a class in its own. That's what my dad was raised at, and as is my dad. I just always grew up like I was raised to be Roman Catholic, and now I'm like it's hard to reconcile. Just the older I get and the individual that I become, it's hard to reconcile with the Catholic Church for me personally. But my parents, they wanted us to have some faith, which I understand. But my dad, his dad worked at a Catholic school that they attended. So whenever like they got in trouble, he was just like, "Well, just put him where I can see him." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's like terrifying." And then also my dad was like, "I did my time." It was like, so I had a really weird like outlook on religion because it was just like it's something you had to do, not something to connect with. I want to explore that part of like how you researched and like how you made that group, that community, and those beliefs and that culture like so immersed because that was such a driving force, and especially like what was served as an obstacle because the powers that be were very much part of that community.
Yeah, and I was very much like you, where I was immersed in that because I was a kid, and my parents were not overly devout or religious, but it was more like a tradition. Of course you're going to go to catechism. Of course you're going to go to church. It's just what we do. And there wasn't a lot of reflection on why or philosophizing. And I think that one thing that I was drawn to and I still cherish as memories is the ceremony, the incense and the music and the song and the raiments and things like that. For a kid, there's some sort of comfort in it that it's a tradition. And I guess I'm super lucky that I didn't experience any of the dark side of the church. I didn't have anybody being mean to me or abusing me, neither did my siblings. But I did notice one thing when my dad was in his 80s, he left the Catholic Church and never looked back. And I said, "Why?" And he said, "I don't like what I'm hearing about the priests." And that's all he said.
Like I said, I was rooting for her, and I'm all about women owning themselves and owning their sexuality and just becoming as self-aware as possible, whether that's like mentally, emotionally, physically. I'm all about that. So I appreciate it when it's like in the books that I read and the characters that I read. Because again, a sucker for everything, but I'm also a sucker for character growth. I love that when readers or authors can find new ways to demonstrate that. It's so fun and so cool.
Oh, thanks for saying that. I was nervous with the various sex scenes, and I did, like you say, I wanted them to contribute to the character growth and the relationship growth. And then Raphael has his stuff going on. So the sex was meaningful to him in unexpected ways too, and his own growth. Yeah. So that was my goal. I'm glad it worked for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like it's safe in a way where I would recommend this book to my mom. I feel comfortable recommending this book to my mom. You know what I mean? Like there's like a spectrum that I keep an eye on. And I'm like, because my mom loves to read too, and I lended her a handful of books. So I'm like, this is in that category on that end where I'm like, there's still kind of stuff in there, but
My mom's not going to be clutching her pearls or getting uncomfortable or anything like that. So that's like where it is, that range.
That is
for
very
sure.
well said. And I have to say, my mom she's always one of my first beta readers. And so she always gives me great feedback and great suggestions. So I don't think I could get much racier than this because
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I can hand it to her. Yeah.
So that's a fun one. Dear Mr. Knightley.
Dear Mr. Knightley. Okay, I'll have to either and add it onto my reading list and put it in the show notes because that sounds. If you're recommending this, like if that's the one that comes to your mind, if that question is asked, I'm gonna have to.
It doesn't
I'm gonna have to
always
check it
come
out.
to my mind, but it is one of those stories that also, what published 12 years ago, I still get letters on it all the time. I love this story, etc. That means
Oh,
it's got this evergreen quality, which means it still touches people where they are, like in the human journey. And I love that. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's a testament to even if I can't imagine how much you've grown as a writer in the past 12 years.
to be honest,
And that's a testament as that's still hitting the mark. That's still
know.
tugging at the heartstrings. That's still making, because it's okay. Maybe that's like first among the first in your journey, but it's still new for the reader and
Exactly.
for them to
The only problem I have with that is when people say it is my absolute favorite of your books. And I'm like, wait a minute, have I not grown? Have I not got bitten better? Wait. So that's the only thing.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You're like,
Double-edged sword there. I'll take it.
Like what? Okay, you're not gonna go there. You're not gonna wait. What? Why?
Why?
That's so funny. That's the beauty of short stories. You're trying to versus a 20 chapter or 40 chapter book, or what is it? I don't know, a 400-page book. You're trying to tell a story in 10 pages or 20.
Yeah, 10 pages, 5,000 words or something or other.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that. I like that for two reasons. One is I like the explosiveness of a short story. Oftentimes, the central character makes a gesture or has something happen to him, but he or she makes a gesture after which he'll never be the same. And I like that. And the other reason I like short stories is because I've always been ADD and they're easier to hang with. I mentioned
Yeah.
that to a class of students not long ago who were all themselves thinking about being writers. They were in the arts. And fiction and nonfiction. And I mentioned being ADD, which I was in school. And I was surprised they all nodded. It's like they were in that field. They weren't business people. They weren't business majors. They weren't scientists. They weren't historians. They were going into the arts. And when I mentioned being ADD, all the heads nodded, almost really seriously, almost every single one. They identified with it right away.
It's not that she's fearless, it's mostly she's ignorant. Despite all her smarts, she, like you said, she'd never been in those situations. So you haven't developed those instincts. And there's a scene, but it just the idea that she's surrounded by all of these gangly boys just is so, it's like going to a zoo. You're like, I've never seen anything like this before because I've been so sheltered. And Travis represents the leader of that pack. He's a good guy, but it takes you a while to figure that out because he's just a doofus teenager who also has his own ignorance and has his own problems at home.
Yeah, I like the way that you approached it. And I because I'm a mom of two little boys. And so I have so much more sympathy to, even if they're like helicoptering and going crazy, like moms, whatever. I'm like, Travis, listen to your mom.
Yeah. No. And for example, his mom, she was perfectly reasonable. And I picture my own mom saying things like that. And I wanted to be like, yeah, here's a very reasonable mother who is still being discarded, and what are the consequences of that?
Yeah, and it's crazy to parallel with that or juxtapose that with Penny's relationship with her mom, who's one can see like her mom has been absent and been incapacitated and to an extent, for lack of better words, self-medicated, all that. And where like Travis's mom, she's just very like, she's not remarkable or anything. I imagine she's not perfect, but she's like standard, admirable, fulfilling her role as a mom, as looking out for her boy, and who's this strange new girl like, that's apparently like in my house, blah, blah, blah. And so I thought that was really interesting how and how did each of those kids grew up in like different lifestyles, different backgrounds, different upbringings. And what kind of implications is that Travis still turned out? He's still being a teenager. He's still being a teenage boy, getting this excitement in life, doesn't have much direction, even though I'm sure not for any lack of trying from his parents, from his mom. So I thought that was like really interesting to be like, yeah, I bet that Penny would give anything for this type of family, for
Yeah.
someone who is looking out for her.
Totally. And it's worth mentioning that he's 19. He's 2 years younger than her. And his mom is essentially holding by her fingertips the relationship with her son, because for all the presumed decent upbringing, you have a 19-year-old boy who's got an itch to get out of the house and doesn't have a lot of real ambition. And that usually ends up in a pretty fraught parental relationship. And she's just trying to save her boy, but also recognizing like, okay, there's only so much I can do. You're 19 years old and I want to protect you because I don't think you know how to protect yourself. But at some point I can't do that anymore. And so she doesn't want him to go, but in a way she lets him go.
It's funny because my sister and I, we were raised where we would always go to the shop and get these mad films and we would watch them. That would be like this very fond childhood memory I have now of these mad films, but I would get scared because I'd be really young, and it's just something that's always been maybe ingrained in me. I don't know. But it's also now.
I think maybe that's so funny because I think that was the opposite effect for me, because I remember when my mom's aunts growing up, I think their family took care of us since we were like 6 weeks old till, I don't know, till like maybe 10 years old. So they were like our babysitters for a long time. But when we were like 7 years old, maybe, I know that I was really young, and they sat us down to watch the movie It. And ever since then, I'm like, absolutely not. Like, I will not. I refuse to even rewatch that movie. And I've read a few of Stephen King's books, like very talented. That's his thing. And I just remember nope, that's a core memory. I am traumatized. I like, fuck clowns. No, thank you. I will never. And even I think, and I've never watched mind you, whatever, the 80s version, the 70s version, like that version that was like back then, like not the version that
Tim
was
Curry
more
one,
recent, in the last 5 years or so. Yeah. But I just remember, and I have watched both part 1 and 2, the newer ones too, but I think it was partially because like I wanted to overcome it. But just brave up and prove to myself that, and also because it was like hyped and there was like talented actors and stuff. I think I was just the how cinema and filmmaking has evolved in the past like 30 years. I think that I was curious about that too, for sure.
More.
But yeah, I see, that's so funny because I think they had the opposite effect of me, where maybe that's where it started, where it's like, no,
it's a
no,
rough
thank
one,
you.
though.
I'm not going to touch any.
It will really, like, that's a pretty scary film, I think, even to any degree. I think that's a hard one for a child to watch as well, because I'm the same thing. We used to watch that one as well, and I would get very scared of certain parts. It's not great to watch at a young age.
So what advice would you give to Violet? What advice would you give to Xaden?
At the end of the book, I think my biggest advice for her going into book 2 would probably be hold on to your humanity as long as possible, and without giving away like what happens at the end of the book. Give the man a break. I would probably tell her there's a fine line between self-preservation and self-destruction when it comes to her relationship with Xaden, and things that happen in the end that throw a giant, wrench into that relationship. So yeah, I would say that. Xaden, I would say therapy is an amazing thing. Like, therapy, that man has some trauma. He just has some trauma, and he doesn't know how to let someone love him, and he doesn't know how to handle the feeling of actually being loved. For him, my best advice to him would be just let Violet be Violet. It's probably what would get him out of so much of what is going on right now, is let Violet be Violet, and maybe stop withholding information. Whether it's like accidental or intentional, like, just sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah. It's definitely new territory for him.
It is. And it's super fun to see. And at least for me, it's super fun to watch.
And there you go. That was 100 Cantina Conversations and Counting on the special 100th episode of Cantina Book Club podcast. If you guys have made it with me this far, thank you for listening to this long episode. I hope you've had a lot of fun listening to my favorite clips over the past 100 episodes. And whether you've been here from the beginning, whether you caught me from the Nerd Cantina, or you just started listening because you saw an interview with one of your favorite authors or books that you recently read, I really do appreciate everyone who decides to give my little baby podcast some time of their day on their commute, while they're doing your chores, anything, any time and energy that you spend with me, I totally appreciate. And I really hope that you find it worthwhile and you want to stick around for more. As always, rate, review, subscribe. Find Cantina Book Club on your favorite podcast player or YouTube. It's one of the easiest ways to keep up to date with what I've got going on and also support the show and help the show reach more listeners for more bookworms like you. I appreciate everything you guys do. And of course, and every week I say, if you need book recommendations, check out bookclub.com. If you're finding books that you like or authors that you like, go ahead and hop on to Amazon or Goodreads or your favorite book review blog, anything like that, or wherever you find book recommendations, and leave them a rating and a review. It's probably one of the easiest ways to help them out. And as always, thank you guys so much for listening and for watching. And I hope you stick around for the next 100.